and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, 2015 was a year across much of the Corn Belt where we saw a lot more disease pressure than we've seen in a number of years. One of those that stood out in corn is Goss's wilt. We'll talk about Goss's wilt and what can be done on your farm to minimize the problem for next year.
All fall we've been talking about soil fertility, and while many people want to focus on NP and K, and don't get me wrong, that's incredibly important, we've also got to look hard at the micronutrients. Well, one micronutrient that's incredibly critical to every crop you raise is iron. So that will be our topic for today.
Our weed of the week is no picnic. We'll show you how to get it under control later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about some new machines that have changed how soybean seed cleaning is done around the country. They're called color and shape sorters.
You know what? We're kind of on the front edge of this technology. We've had color sorters for a large number of years, and they've been used in a variety of different crops, and especially in high value crops. But now soybeans are starting to get a lot of attention as well, because soybean seed is really valuable. When you look at all the trait packages now that are in soybeans and how much it costs farmers to seed soybeans per acre, certainly farmers want to have the highest quality seed they possibly can. So when you look at color and shape sorters, there's a couple different things that we're trying to do here. Historically, as soybeans get harvested, they go into a seed conditioning plant, and basically that means they're going to sort out any pods, any little pieces of stem, any dirt, anything like that, so you're left with just soybean seed. However, even when you get down to just soybean seed, there's some of the seeds out there that weren't quite mature, and maybe they're oblong. And they aren't going to grow next year because they didn't fully mature. You've got, 90% germination because 10% of the seed might not be the best. But with the color sorters, what actually happens with the seed is they move through individually so an electronic eye can take a picture of each seed. And then if it sees a seed that's not right, maybe one's still green and it's not yellow and mature, a little puff of air can kick that green seed out, and now the finished product looks really pretty good and pretty consistent.
So the reason why this is so important is because the cleaners that we used to have in the old days, we could do some of this type of thing. We could sort mainly for shape. We couldn't do anything for color, but we could sort a little bit for shape. So if it was oblong, we could maybe get it. If it had kind of a little bit of a flat side, we could maybe get it. If it was too big or too small, we could definitely get those, but we just couldn't be as fine. And that's the big difference now, because anymore, as expensive as seed is, we want to make sure that we've got the best chance for every one of them to grow. So it's not only about appearance, it's also a lot about, hey, is this seed actually going to grow? And we know if it's shriveled up, if it's off color, things like that, it probably has less chance to grow.
All right, now you may say this is a big deal if it was my food. If I'm looking at some peas that I'm going to eat or some rice that I'm going to eat, yeah, I don't want to have a black one in there that I'm worried about, oh, is that moldy or rotten or something I don't want to eat. You want to have that to be just perfect, right? Well, it's the same thing for farmers. As we're spending big money buying seed to plant our acres, we want to have stuff that's going to grow, and we want every seed to grow. Now, when we think about the shape sorters, Brian said the old school conditioners could somewhat sort for shape. I mean, if it wouldn't roll through, was mainly the way they would get it. Oh, hey, that one doesn't roll, so we'll kick that out. Now we look at the shape sorters, and it's really fine-tuning things. So if we've got a seed that's a little bit oblong, or if we have a different kind of seed. Maybe it's a volunteer corn plant that grew out in a soybean field, but on volunteer corn, a lot of times those kernels are more round than they are flat, like a regular ear of corn would be. Well, we can sort some of those things out because the shape is different than a soybean seed. And so now we can just get such a high quality seed out of a seed conditioning plant if they have these new machines. Now, that said, these new machines are not cheap, and so there aren't very many of them out in the industry yet. It's just getting started. But as farmers see really high quality seed, that's what they're going to expect, that's what they're going to want, and we look for more of these types of machines to be coming industry-wide over the next 10 years.
Well, the good thing with these color and shape sorters is they can usually get out every single weed that would be in that batch, but unfortunately, nothing's going to control every single weed in your field unless you've got the right program. We'll talk about the correct program for our Weed of the Week coming up later in the show.
Regalia RX biofungicide activates a plant's natural defense system, limiting the effects of disease and improving overall plant health. Regalia RX complements your fungicide program to optimize yield and strengthen return on investment. Ask your retailer for Regalia RX today.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a Soil Max Gold Digger tile plow. Soil Max tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a Soil Max Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with Soil Max. Visit soilmax.com.
Stop coring your bins with the AgriDry Gravity Grain Spreader. Traditional bin filling systems create uneven concentrations of grain and fine particulates. Uniform grain distribution allows even airflow throughout the entire bin, giving you more control over temperature and moisture content, increasing your grain quality and bottom line. Call us today for more information.
Dry Load Store, 1-855 AgriDry.
We have a school and a church nearby. I actually go to the classroom to educate the students about what's going on here on my farm. The system that I have, I tie everything together. No-till, cover crops. We applied AgriLiquid in furrow with our soybeans this year. It seemed like they jumped out of the soil, even though we had the record rainfall. I really feel that I'm feeding my plant on a consistent year-round basis throughout the growing season.
Farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
This past season has been really difficult in terms of disease control, and one of the diseases that we saw maybe a little bit more than normal was a bacterial disease, not a fungus, but a bacterial disease called Goss's wilt.
Well, you know, when you go to the doctor and they say, sorry, it's just a virus, there's not much we can do, it's going to run its course, that's kind of how we feel as corn farmers with Goss's wilt. You know, it's a bacterial disease. Our fungicides that we would spray really don't have any activity because it's not a fungus. So if there's really nothing that you can treat post-emerge on Goss's wilt, you have to manage it with your seed decision. And that's why we're talking about it right now, as most farms across the country are either wrapping up harvest or making those seed decisions. You have to take a look at Goss's wilt tolerance in the corn hybrids you're picking for next year.
Okay, so here's what normally happens. You decide in the fall, hey, I had a problem with Goss's wilt. You talk to the seed dealer. Yep, you get the varieties all set, everything's great. And then at the last minute in the spring, the seed dealer says, oh, sorry, I can't get you that variety, but we've got one that's just as good. Let's plant that one on the farm instead. And you kind of forget about this. So the reason we're bringing it up today is if you've had a Goss's wilt problem, then you definitely want to tell your seed dealer, look, I can't have any switches. You have to get me this seed that's the best for Goss's wilt, because that is by far the best thing you can do. Now let's talk about when are you most likely to have Goss's wilt?
Well, one of the big things that you have to avoid is corn on corn. If you've had a bad Goss's wilt problem on your farm and you go right back with corn again, Goss's is going to survive in that crop residue, and now you've got much more likelihood of having a Goss's problem the second year. When we look at corn hybrids, many times you'll see companies say, you know, this one's better on continuous corn, this one's not good on continuous corn. corn. If your seed company is telling you don't put this on continuous corn, chances are it's a horrible number for Goss's wilt tolerance, and you don't want anything to do with that on your farm. But here's what happens. You say, you know, I've got that one field that's corn on corn, so I don't have to worry about that on the rest of my farm. Then you don't want to clean out the boxes on your planter. You don't want to clean out that central fill hopper, and you say, there's only a few units in there. Plant that around the outside of your corn on corn field and tell me if you notice a difference. We sure did the same thing on our farm one time, and all of a sudden we had Gosses just horrible on those end rows because that hybrid just didn't have the tolerance. If you've got continuous corn in your rotation, you really need to watch all the corn that you're planting. I realize it's more fussy on those fields, but chances are better that you're gonna have more Gosses in your area. So be real fussy about which hybrids you get if you have continuous corn.
All right, let's talk about how you can solve this problem in addition to picking the right variety. And by far and away, that's number one, okay? Don't get us wrong. But in addition to that, you could do tillage. Now, there are disadvantages to tillage, certainly, but burying more of that residue will lead to fewer problems the next year. Another important thing is making sure you have the right overall fertility program. Because let's face it, it's just like you or me. If we eat good all the time, we're much more tolerant to getting sick. I mean, we're not going to get sick as often. Same thing in your crop. You've got to feed that crop correctly. So if you do those couple of things, you know, that's going to be really important. Take care of your crop. Give it the best nutrients, the best weed control, the best insect and disease control with everything else, and you'll find Gosses is usually less of an issue.
You know, the other thing is just trying to avoid damaging your crop in any way. For Gosses to get into the plant, it gets in most often through a wound. Now, if you have some hail or something like that, or some wind damage, there's not a lot you can do about that. But as you're making passes through your field and you're driving through the field, it's amazing to me how much more Gosses you see right along those wheel tracks as you've kind of beat up some of those plants. So do what you can to try to minimize that. Whatever you can do to minimize damage on your leaves is very important.
Goss's wilt can be a terrible problem for you, so again, make sure you're picking the right varieties, do everything else possible to not damage your crop and have the healthiest crop possible so it can survive any Gosses that might show up in your area.
The other thing you may consider is pre-emerge weed control, especially if you have problem weeds like our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
When you need one machine that can do it all, you send in a Spartan, your all-in-one forage solution from Capello, USA. This direct cutting system is the right machine for almost any forage crop and gets everything done in a single pass, keeps your costs down. Always versatile, the Spartan can be configured to fit any self-propelled forage harvester in the world. So, no matter what you forage, send in a Spartan from Capello, USA. Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots from Monsanto Bioegg is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more, and is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Get Quick Roots today.
I choose Stein.
I choose service.
I choose results.
I choose research.
I choose genetics.
I choose Stein.
At Stein, we have products that are second to none.
You know, Stein has a background of the highest yielding genetics in the marketplace.
They are a world-class leader in genetics. We push the limits, we try new things, we develop genetics, all designed to benefit the farmer.
I choose Stein because Stein has yield.
Take a look inside any rotary combine and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
Presenting the new 2016 Apache sprayer. If you could save money and increase yield, why wait? Delaying change can cost you money.
It's phenomenal the return of investment it brings back. In my mind, a sprayer is the biggest return of investment you can bring back.
Apache owners apply in half the time of a full type, apply when they want versus custom, and spend less than Hydrostat owners, not to mention less weight on their crops. Go ahead and compare. We hope you do. Visit etsprayers.com to locate a dealer and how to save with an Apache. Apache, now more than ever.
For the last couple of months, we've been talking a lot about nutrients and soil testing and trying to get everything right on your farm, get stuff in balance. Well, one of the micronutrients that you've really got to focus on is iron. So we're going to talk about that today.
Well, iron is super critical, especially to grass crops. And I remember back a dozen years ago, I was on Francis Child's farm in Iowa, and we were looking in this root pit, and he dug a pit down about 5 foot deep. And I said, wow, there's a whole bunch of these orange spots that look kind of like iron down deep in your soil. And Childs just kind of smiled, laughed a little bit. He's like, yep, that is iron. And that's one of my secrets to getting these high yields. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, obviously I couldn't put iron down deep. It just naturally was there. But he goes, how many of those orange pockets do you notice in the top 3 or 4 feet in my root pit? And I said, well, I don't notice any. Was this just a deposit that was deeper? He said, no, I used to see those up 3 feet deep in my soil. Now they're completely gone. I've gotten so many roots down in there, they've taken that iron in and now spread it back out around in my soil. So he said, yeah, I'm working on that next foot down now with getting deep roots to try to access as much iron as I possibly can. Now, when you think about iron, usually it's from the negative side. It's soybean farmers that have high pH and they have iron deficiency chlorosis, where we see green veins but yellow tissue in between on the leaves. And farmers in those areas say, I just can't get enough iron into my plant. They're totally wrong. They've got iron in the plant. It's just in the wrong form, where the plants can't use it. When we look at iron, there's iron with a positive 2 charge and iron with a positive 3 charge. Your plants need iron with the positive 2 charge in order to utilize it. When we get really high pH soils, anything above 7 especially, but once you're above 7.4 and more, it's more prevalent, we're gonna see iron switch and convert into that positive 3 form. So even though the plant can bring it in through the root system, it's not in the form that your plants can use.
Well, before we get into anything else with iron, let's talk specifically about how to solve that problem of iron deficiency chlorosis in soybeans. Your long-term fix is almost always improve your drainage. Once you have better drainage, everything flushes through the soil better. You have your salts flush through better, and you raise more roots, and more roots in turn will have more organic acids released. You'll lower the pH over time. It just takes a period of years. So in the short term, what you need to do is go with very high rates of iron, just literally right in furrow or 2x2, something like that. You know, we're talking about a soy green or green bean type product. You've got to get a bunch more iron out there. Iron is incredibly important for every crop that we're talking about.
Okay, the other thing is if you are short in iron in that area in available form, you have to look at a couple quick fixes in soybeans. You have to plant a variety that can tolerate it. And then, as Brian mentioned, put that iron in furrow at planting. You can do it foliar, and you can definitely green soybeans up, but we don't see near the yield gains or yield improvements that we do with that in furrow treatment.
Okay, so for iron on a soil test, what we're really looking for, if you've got your pH right, okay, let's say your pH is in the 6.3 to 7.3 kind of range, then generally we just want to see a good soil test. 20 parts per million to 40 parts per million on a Midwest lab soil test. This, I'm not saying anybody else's soil test. I don't know what it's going to be because everybody does extraction methods a little different, but on Midwest labs, 20 to 40 parts per million, and we need the number to be higher than manganese.
All right, I've heard some people say, well, I've taken plant tissue tests and my iron is really high. Yeah, I'm one of those guys too. One of the first plant tissue tests I took, I sent it into the lab. Iron came back exceptionally high, and I thought, wow, this is great. We have all kinds of iron. And I called the lab and they said, you know what? Could you please wash the leaves off? There's a lot of dirt on the leaves, and that really threw off our iron measurement. And I thought, oh.
Yeah, but not just wash it off. Wash it off with distilled water, because that's another mistake people make, is wash it off with regular water. Well, guess what? If you've got hard water, what does hard water have in it? A lot of times it has high levels of iron, so it's misleading. So you got to make sure you're doing this thing the right way. But anyway, yes, check your soil, check your plant tissue analysis, and then you got to look at how you're going to get that iron out there in general. So on our own farm, what we were finding is, oh, a lot of our fields are in good shape for iron, and I just had a few that weren't very good. And I'm like, huh, I wonder why there's such a difference, because the ones that were good, they were really good, and the ones that were bad, they were really bad. And I thought, I don't know that we're farming them any different or anything like that. And then I remembered back, oh yeah, we threw lime in all these fields or in all these areas. So I looked at our lime, and the lime we were getting had a bunch of iron in it. So I literally was getting iron for free. It was worth a tremendous amount through my lime. So the point here being, whatever you put on the soil, I don't care if it's lime, if it's manure, whatever it is, Test it. Find out what you're getting, not just for the major nutrients, but for the micronutrients too. It could save you a bunch of money. Well, the only problem, Darren, with getting all these nutrients right and in balance to raise a great crop, sometimes you can raise great weeds as well, but we'll tell you how to stop them if you get our Weed of the Week on your farm. It's coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Our Weed of the Week is Broadleaf Signalgrass, and this is very confusing because it's got the word broadleaf in it and the word grass in it. It's actually a grass.
When we look at broadleaf signalgrass, it really appears to be large crabgrass. They're very similar. When you peel back the leaf and look at the ligule, on large crabgrass, you're looking at a membranous ligule. If it happens to be broadleaf signalgrass, it's a hairy ligule. So that would be one thing that you could do to differentiate between the two weeds. Now, with broadleaf signalgrass, like large crabgrass, it's going to have no hairs on the upper surface of the leaf. That's something that many farmers will say, hey, that's how I know it's broadleaf signalgrass. Well, it could be crabgrass in that case too, so you really do have to look at that ligule. One other thing that I look at with broadleaf signalgrass is that it has the ability to root down from lower nodes on the plant. So all of a sudden, that plant kind of bushes out, now it roots down again, making it much more difficult to kill than a normal annual weed.
All right, let's talk weed control in corn. And yes, Roundup on this weed is actually still pretty good from what we have found so far because it is a grass, okay? So don't worry too much if you're raising Roundup crops. But nevertheless, if you want to do a good job pre-emerge in corn, our best recommendation is not to use one of those combo products like a Verdict or Sure Start or Triple Flex. Use the straight grass killer and the full rate. We're talking Harness, Surpass, Outlook, Dual, Zidua, something like that. Full rate, you'll do a much better job. Same kind of thing in soybeans, Treflan, Sonalan, Prowl. Just go back to the basics. So those old grass killers, they're good as long as you use a decent rate. In wheat, we have options now too. Our best choice, or your best choice, would be Prepare Pre-Emerge. So you've got a number of pre-emerge options. When you do that, you're really thin out the population, so your post-emerge herbicide doesn't have to do so much.
The challenge in wheat is if you use Prepare, that's a Group 2 or an ALS herbicide. The best post-emerge choices are also ALS herbicides. So you may say, well, man, do I want to use my ALS pre or post? Hey, you can still use the Group 1s or the ACC ACE products post-emerge in wheat. Things like Puma or Axial could be good options for you to clean up any escapes. When we look at soybeans, same kind of thing. We like those ALS post-emerge products like a Pursuit or Raptor. They're pretty good. As Brian mentioned, Roundup will do a nice job. Liberty can do a nice job as well.
Well, wait, though, on soybeans, my preference, Darren, would be to use something like a Sure 2, Fusilade, Select Max, one of those types of products. So yes, I know the ALS products are okay, but I even prefer these other grameticides better.
Okay, in corn, your post-emerge options, Roundup and Liberty are available in many corn hybrids. That's the way I would go. That would be your best choice for grass, because otherwise it costs quite a bit of money to get good grass control post-emerge in corn.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week Broadleaf Signalgrass, but stay tuned, Iron Talk is coming up next.
For lower costs, higher production, Mandico Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Avoid costly downtime with Twister's ease of maintenance. Its unique Coulter suspension allows it to follow the contour of the field yet remain forgiving in rocks. Our hydraulically adjustable Coulter angles mean you never leave the cab, making residue management easier, more efficient. Spring or fall, the Mandico Twister is the new leader. Check with your local dealer or visit mandicoagri.com.
There are no marks of conflict lining this landscape. No echoes of economic hardship. Just the unmistakable murmur of Mother Nature's hand. In the perennial quest to outperform, ensure your crop gets the nutrients it craves with a Veil Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Nothing helps protect your investment more, so you can grow confidently no matter what comes your way. Avail. Hold your ground.
Working in agriculture over the past 3 decades, I saw a need for an accurate way to apply dry product to seed. That's where our Changing Times applicators come in. The CT applicator brush sifts powder into small particles, resulting in proper distribution. Quantities can be adjusted by the speed of the brush rotation. This allows for even and accurate distribution of product. Application at the time of planting can be used with any seed delivery system and saves farmers time, labor, and money. Remember, CT applicators for the changing times.
I trust AgroLiquid because I've seen the results and they're positive and they work on my farm, they work in my environment. When I started farming, we was farming around 125 acres and now we're up to around 1,700 acres. I think I was recognized as the Tennessee Young Farmer by being a leader in the community and also being innovative. I'm always looking for new products, but I got to make sure that those products are sustainable. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and I would love for them to farm this land.
Are you wasting money applying the wrong fertilizers on your farm? Here are 3 easy steps to finding out. First, download the free Ag PhD soil test app. Next, pull your own samples. You can probably sample 1,000 acres a day using 5-acre grids. Finally, submit the samples and get both Ag PhD and Midwest Labs recommendations. You can also quickly and easily build your own variable rate application maps and controller files. Go to agphdsoiltest.com to learn more.
With the success of the Case IH Tiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
Presenting the new 2016 Apache sprayer. If you could save money and increase yield, why wait? Delaying change can cost you money.
It's phenomenal the return of investment it brings back. In my mind, a sprayer is the biggest return of investment you can bring back.
Apache owners apply in half the time of full type, apply when they want versus custom, and spend less than hydrostat owners, not to mention less weight on their crops. Go ahead and compare. We hope you do. Visit etsprayers.com to locate a dealer and how to save with an Apache. Apache, now more than ever.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
Drainage tile work got an early start on many farms this fall, and it will continue as long as the weather allows. One of the big projects farmers are working on first this year was increasing the amount of tile in certain areas of fields. I'll explain in today's Iron Talk. Fixing iron deficiency chlorosis spots or alkali areas is a great example. In most cases, improving the drainage will solve the problem for the long term. However, how close should you put the tile spacings? Farmers with 100-foot tile spacings are narrowing them up to 50 feet or even 25 feet. In the IDC or alkali areas, we see many farmers having great success taking these small areas of the field and putting tile in at 10 to 15-foot spacings and keeping them shallow at only 2.5 to 3 feet deep. This allows the slow-draining problem areas to drain as fast as the rest of the field and flush out the salts, bringing your soil pH back into the ideal range over time. You won't see those same results with risers. The key action you want to get out of your tile is for the water to move down through the soil. Try this approach of narrowing up your tile spacings on a few areas of your farm. I'm confident you'll like the difference it can make. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but if you're looking for more agronomy information, we invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us on the Rural Radio channel, that's Sirius XM 147 at 2 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central each weekday.
Don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
A healthy soil helps to keep our air and water clean while providing a medium for productive crops, pastures, and shelter belts. It takes good management practices and care to accomplish this. To learn more, visit rnmf.org.